Hi everybody, come on in. Well, this is something that I hear many times. My orchids are healthy. I'm doing everything right. And they won't bloom. I've had my orchids for years and they look so healthy, but they won't bloom. Well, the sad truth, and we're going to fix this today. I don't want to hear that anymore. We're going to fix that because the sad truth is you can be doing everything right, but if your orchids do not have enough light in the growing season, they are not going to bloom in the blooming season. So we're catching this at the right time. We're just coming into the growing season, and all the other things that are important so that you get your orchids to bloom are still important. But you can have the right fertilizer. You can drop your temperature in the fall for a couple weeks, 10 to 15 degrees. You can be applying lots of nitrogen, but if they're not getting enough good light, they will not gather enough energy from photosynthesis so that they'll flower. Their leaves are like solar panels and they need to gather energy. So, how are we going to fix this? Because I know that you can read in many places, grow your orchids in an east window. Well, my orchids flower every year for quite a few years, and I don't have an east window. So how do you work with what you've got? Because you can design wherever you keep your orchids to fit the perfect climate for your orchids, and they'll be happy. Because Phalaenopsis orchids are very hardy. They make you so happy to have a touch of nature that, you know, I used to go hike in the woods when I was younger, and and the bears were around and the cougars were around, and I was out in nature all the time. But, you know, so I don't want to fight the mosquitoes anymore and go camping, and I don't really want to go hiking anymore. I've sufficed with a walk around the block, and this is my nature. And I'm trying to make them happy because they make me happy, because I'm surrounded by the beauty of nature in my own home. I don't have to go anywhere. And I want you to enjoy that too. So the first thing we have to know is how much light do our Phalaenopsis orchids need. Now, I have a few other species here, and I'm mostly talking about Phalaenopsis, but the species I have got along quite nicely with the phals, with these conditions. So, we're going to visit each window, and I'm going to explain to you how I make the west windows and the north windows all work just as good as if they were east windows. And everybody can do that. So now you can read many things too. How much light does my orchid need? Well, they need lots of light. 12 to 14 hours a day of light is good. I say, just from my experience, and I'm just an average woman here, I say 14 hours of light is awesome. Now this isn't hot sun, this isn't direct sunlight. but they do need that light. And don't forget, I had somebody say one time, oh, I left my lights on all night. No, no, no. They need a nighttime nap just like us. So when we go to bed at night, well, I turn on my grow lights that I have in these windows. I don't use them, of course, in the daytime because I have lots of light. But at night, when it starts to get dusk, I turn them on. At night when we go to bed, I turn them off because my orchids live with me. They're putting up with the same conditions we're putting up with. So, now, this is a secret to designing your own microclimate. And it's a balance. It's a balance between heat, humidity, light, and airflow. Because all these things can be used to help lessen heat, make things feel cooler on a hot day, warmer on a cold day. All these things sort of come into play along with that light. So, let's talk about a west window. Because I have two west windows, the windows I used first for my orchids. And both west windows are very different. And I have to explain that. And we sit here, just the three of us, and we have our dinner every night. And if I don't have those blinds, I installed just these Venetian blinds here. Right now they're open so the light can come through, and they're getting, for a west window, they're getting good light. Now you also have to consider that outside there's a huge hedge the neighbors have that comes up to the height of our house. You have to consider what you have outside when you say it's a west window, because that's diminishing some of the light. And also, if your windows are dirty out there, that's going to start to stop some of the good lights from coming into your Phalaenopsis. So the other day when I washed my orchids, I cleaned the inside of this window, and I do have to go out and clean the outside. So it's good to have clean windows, and also stained glass. I have a little down here. Any kind of tint on your window, stained glass. Now our windows are all low E, in case you're wondering, oh, will my orchids do good in low E? And I have read, and I have heard people say they don't. But these have been low E windows as long as I've had orchids, and they do fine. But low E does stop some of the light. Okay, they're still getting apparently lots. So those are things you sort of consider where the windows are concerned. And in the summer, after say about 4 o'clock, because this is the west and the sun's going down, then we have to close these blinds. For one, Jack will say it's hot on his back. I'll sit over there and I won't be able to see anybody else because the light is on my eyes. And the plants, now if you're to touch your leaf of your plant and you're wondering if it's too hot or too much light, it's not so much too much light, it's the heat from that light. And if you touch your leaf and your body temperature and it feels warmer than your body temperature, it is too hot. I did that one time when they were out in the patio for the summer. And so there's one. And another thing is a shadow. The shadow test for light is if the light's coming in and you hold your hand out about a foot away from the leaf. If you see a faint shadow, that's probably okay for low light plants like orchids like Phalaenopsis. Now, in the heat, when the sun gets brighter, it's cloudy right now and comes around this side, and I have a strong shadow, that is okay too. But you have to consider the heat that's coming in from that, coming through the glass and coming in to your house. Now, they talk in foot candles. How many candles would you need for so much light if they were a foot away from the orchid? Well, 1,000 to 1,500 if you have a light meter, and I haven't tried it, but I did read that you can get an app for your cell phone that will read the light. So if you have that app, then that's what you can do. But I've never bothered to do that, and I've always gone by feel. So, and if you have your orchid near your window, it's getting reflected light. Here I have 2 windows over there and a patio door. There's a lot of reflected light going on in this room. In this time of the year, it's good. In the winter, the grow lights are on more. Now, there's many kinds of grow lights you could get. They like a balance between 50-50 cool and warm, or the red light, some people say, encourages flowers more, and the blue light growth. But now they're finding LED lights are so good. Get your grow lights, and you don't have to worry about burning your plants. And we just got a stick-on tape that runs right around here. And this one's been stuck on for a long time, and it's been perfectly good. And I just turn that on when I need it. So this west window, by having a blind, has made all the difference. If I never had that blind, I could not keep these orchids here in the summer. And I started out with a blind on the front. And I just put them on a shelf that we built in front of our window. We just put normal wooden shelf holder and 2 sheets of glass and made our window just a bit bigger so that I could put the blind down and move them off of in there. And then I thought, oh, why didn't I put the blinds inside? Which is what I did later, and it's perfect. So that's how I've made the west window, this west window, more acclimatized to my orchids and my lifestyle. So it depends on various things that you have to decide for yourself. If there's trees outside your window blocking light, how much extra light you need to give your orchids. And now we're going to go look at the other west window. Okay, here we are at the other west window, and the difference between this window. And this is if you are thinking of getting a garden window, a bay window. The one in the other room is more like a bay window. This was a garden window, or is a garden window, and it has light on the top. The other window had just a ceiling on the top and just windows on the front and sides. So this window actually gets a lot more light because of the glass on the top. That's a little dirty, that's shading it a little right now. So there is still the hedge outside, but it's on a slow taper towards the road, so it's a little lower. It's not quite as high, so a little more sun is getting in this window. And you'll notice in this window, I have cactus in the winter. And that's the other thing. A west window here in our northern hemisphere is beautiful all winter. And that's a good thing because we're in our homes a lot in the winter up here. So that is when you really want your orchids in the window. So it's only for the certain hours of the day that those west windows are being a problem. That a curtain, a blind, whatever you have that you put there, if it's just for a few hours to just add that little bit of shade, The west windows are quite fine because it's all I had before I got the north windows. But this window is hotter. I have a blind on the outside of the window, but because of the glass, I haven't discovered a way to nicely put blinds on the inside. I've heard there's stick-on ones. A person would have to look into that. We have the same LED light going all the way around the windows so that they're getting enough light on days, no matter winter or summer, when it's not as bright outside. And I've done fine with that. So I do move my orchids out on the patio in the summertime, and it's hotter and sunnier out there, but they have a shade cloth. And when you change, if you're going to move your orchids from where they are normally to another place for the summer, do it gradually and don't have a big shock to your orchids, because they can get a shock and you can get leaf damage and you could severely injure your orchids. So even when you make that move, you have to do it slowly. Hi.
Hi. I gotta go downstairs and get a car.
Okay. So that's the other thing. So the top shelf here, now that the days are hotter, there's no orchids on my top shelf, you can see. And on the bottom, I've got cactus that can actually stay there all the time. I don't move them because they can take that heat. They haven't had any trouble with it, even though when we can't take the heat, I bring those blinds down. And we do not have air conditioning in our house. We thought about it and we still haven't put air conditioning in. We go find a cooler place to stay. And my orchids have put up with so much heat, fire smoke, everything. So they are hardy. Don't think that I'm running around babying them all the time. They just need the right conditions. And I grow on the dry side. I like when I water my orchids for the water to go right through and not hang around, because it will create humidity for a long time. And the humidity is actually more important than the water. So many people kill their orchids with too much water, and that's why I like a medium that the water will go right through. I'm sure they would do good in almost any medium under those circumstances. So as you notice, I've got my orchids on a side table because this window is so hot in the summer. So they're getting light coming in, and when I pull the blind down, they're still getting light. There is a large living room window in the south, also bringing light into the room. And most of these... Oh boy, he has his ways. Okay, so that's why most of these are now in the room where I can pull the blind down. I actually only have to pull it about half to shade all this. So that is another good example of a west window. And I do in the winter have orchids on the top shelf too. I just make sure now that things crowd into the room a little more, and it's all good. So now we're going to go to the north windows. What? Growing orchids in a north window? See you in a minute. Did I do this right? Oh yeah, here I am. Can you believe the cymbidiums are in full bloom still? They are so easy to grow. Lots of people actually have them growing in hotter places outside all year round. But as soon as they're not in bloom, I will be making this plant into thirds and dividing it and keeping a third for myself. So, they do have aroma, so if you have allergies, we have to be careful with that, because none of my phals really can't cast enough scent to bother anybody with allergies because my whole family has allergies, and my mom for years couldn't even have a flower in her house because my dad was very, very bad. So that's how I started with orchids, because I knew I could have them over to dinner and I didn't have to worry. And my brother too. So orchids do have their advantages. And here I have the dendrobiums. I have them here because on this side, because I did have them getting more sun from the west side, but the cooler they stay now, the longer their flowers are going to last, and that is with bells too, but with these I want the flowers to last as long as possible, and they're doing so well. Now a couple years ago I put in these north garden windows. They have glass on the top. We have LED lights only on one side all the way up and down, and they get turned on in the evening when it starts to get dark, and they get turned off when we go to bed. They definitely need that extra light. If it's a cloudy day, I will use them. But the advantage of the garden window here on this north side is that window on the top is also letting a lot of light in. I have a lot of light, and I've had orchids here since I got them, and all my orchids in this window have been doing fine. Definitely needs the added light. And they have a lot of reflected light because there is a lot of windows. And even my little species have done well here. They're getting good leaves. Humidity is very important, especially here in the north where we have heaters on all winter. If I keep my humidity about 50%, and that's with all my misters running, I'm happy. Sometimes it's a lot lower, but they seem to be happy too. So, you know, please don't say you can't have an orchid because you don't have the proper growing conditions, because they're very versatile, and you can create your own microclimate in your own home and enjoy them like I am, because it's very simple. So here we are in the north window. That extra light from the top is very important. But like I say, if you don't have that, and you just have a normal window, then that's when you want to have a shelf or a table right up to the window, and you still will need a grow light for your north window, but it can be done. Grow lights work in people's basements, so it's even better to have a north window than a grow room with no lights. So yes, you can do that. And the same with this one over here, which I will show you. Whoops. Okay. So this window over here, I do have my big plate that I got, and it is probably stopping sunlight. I got my big lip phal has 2 blooms. It's just open, and I'm going to tell you a story about her. I was kind of babying her one year when it got quite hot, and I'd moved most of my orchids out to the patio already, and I left her in. And instead of doing it slowly, I had put her out. She was in the shade, but it was hot that year. It was very hot. Even our house gets 90, 100 degrees inside sometimes. But her leaf was on the pot, and the pot had got so hot it had actually burnt the leaves. So that's why you do these moving slowly and thoughtfully. So here I have some species. I have my Georgia Pearl here, and they have still done really well, and I'd still keep misters going. These windows in the winter were very cool, but I just moved them in towards the house more. And even though they were cooler than the other windows, nothing got damaged. And we had the coldest winter this past year that I can remember living here, having. So yes, I'd moved them in, but I left them as if they were on a shelf right on the first part of the window, and make sure nothing's touching the glass summer or winter. I hope that helps a little. If you've got any comments you wish to add, questions, I'm glad to answer them. And if I can't, quite often everybody reads the comments and somebody else can answer your question. So thanks for watching and listening and being my friend all these years, and I appreciate a thumbs up if you remember. It helps get us out there and be noticed. Hi Maggie, we're going to say goodbye. Time to go have a coffee. Bye for now.